Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of the It's All Related podcast with our special guests, Jenna and Craig. If you tuned into part 1, we talked about life on the road. In part 2, I'm going to steer down memory lane a little bit because, believe it or not, it doesn't seem like an anniversary, but it is, because 10 years ago this month and kind of next month, Jenna and I...
Oh, God, 10 years.
10 years. Wow. Jenna and I were in Plantsmith, Nebraska, filming a little movie called April Showers, which by that point we had been working together for, a year? A year before we got to location. And so, we filmed it in 2008, in the beginning of 2008, having started work on it in 2007, and then it came out a year later in 2009, and then we were out of there, done with it by 2010.
Wow.
But 2008, so it was 10 years ago now, around this time, because I think it was end of February, we traveled out there, and we started on location pre-production in the basement of my aunt's house.
Aww.
And then in March, we filmed.
Did we really film in March?
I think so.
I can't remember.
We filmed in March, and I think we finished up like the first week in April or something.
Oh, I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you and I moved to Nebraska basically in middle of February 10 years ago.
Was it? I feel like there was no snow on the ground when we moved there.
There wasn't. They had a really mild winter that year.
Oh.
We moved out there 2 weeks before production was supposed to start.
Yes, that I remember. We took over the basement.
And it was cold. I remember it being
cold.
Very cold, but it wasn't snowy.
Wow. Happy anniversary.
10 years.
Jeez.
Feel old yet?
Yes. Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bunch of punk kids. At least I was a punk kid.
I was just thinking about that the other day. Just how freaking young we were, and like none of us knew what we were doing. But we made it happen, and isn't that what it's about?
Yeah. No, you just gotta, as we were talking about last week or the week before, it's cliche, and we know it's Nike's motto, but you just have to do it.
I know, it's true.
You just have to start somewhere.
And at some point, everyone's never done what they've pursued.
There's
always a first for everybody.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true.
I mean, if our journey can start with a Craigslist ad and end,
which it literally did.
Yeah, it did.
What was the ad?
Well, I wrote a script in 2006 that I had every intention of giving to my mentor, Michael Gottlieb, rest in peace, who directed, for some of maybe our older listeners, remember the 1980s rom-com classic Mannequin.
Oh, wow.
Michael Gottlieb was the writer and director of Mannequin.
Oh, I didn't realize
the first
that.
one, not the second one. That was garbage.
But the first one was like
Kim Cattrall and all that. So he wrote and directed Mannequin, and he had done he went on to do other films, but his most notable film was Mannequin. And Michael and I were friends, and I met him because he taught a writing class in the evenings at the university that I went to. And it was the only class that he taught, and it was a lot of fun. And so I had written an entirely different script in his class, and then I graduated, went into advertising and stuff, and then wrote this other script, April Showers, in 3 days. It just dumped out of my head. And I gave it to Michael, and I said, hey, would you consider making this with me? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, would you direct it? And I'll just be the writer and then hang out with you and learn how to make movies while you're making my movie. And he was like, yeah. So then he read it, and he thought about it, and he came back to me, and he's like, well, I'll co-direct it with you. I think you should direct it, but you definitely, with a project this big, you should have supervision. And I was like, yeah, of course, that'd be awesome. And so he's like, I got some money people. I'll show it to some money people. And they all read it, and they all wanted it, and they wanted me as far away from it as possible. And so Michael he's very kind and very upfront, and he was like, I don't think that you should be removed from the project, but these people will give me the money to do it on this type of a level, and I won't be able to bring you along. So you have a choice. Do you want to sell it to these people, knowing that I will do my best to take care of your baby, but they will ask for changes and you will not be a part of that? Or do you want to go try and do it yourself?
Is that why they didn't want to have you involved? Is because they knew they would get pushed back on when they wanted to do changes, or what? I
think they just, because it's Hollywood, and I'm at that point, 2006, what was I, 24 years old with no credits. Like, I'm sure that they were going to take the bones. They basically were buying the rights to the idea of the story, and I'm sure it was going to get a page one rewrite to be more commercially viable. Because I very much wrote an independent film that had zero audience. Like, let's be clear.
That's not true.
No, let's be clear.
Zero commercial audience.
I wrote a film that had zero commercial impact or commercial viability, and they knew that.
Yeah.
And I think everyone wanted to be respectful, given that it was largely based on my personal experiences, having gone through that in real life. Spoiler alert, I was at Columbine, if you're listening and didn't know that. But Michael was always very cool with me about that. And so, we thought about it and talked about it, and ultimately, decided that I wanted to keep it. And if it didn't happen, then it wasn't meant to be. So, hold on. We're about to get leaf blowed.
First world problems.
Yeah, we apologize if you hear leaf blowing in the background. Unfortunately, with the weather and everything, the maintenance schedule out in our parking lot is all screwed up. They don't normally do this on Mondays.
Yeah, usually it's like 7 a.m. on Mondays.
So
it's been pretty wet.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, if you're hearing a slight humming in the background, it's leaf blowers, and just bear with us. I'll lean into.
Wait to cut it out.
They probably can't hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
right.
It's very
so yeah, then April Shower sat in the drawer for months and months and months, and I met with a wonderful woman who was the producer of Desperately Seeking Susan,
nice.
Midge Sanford, and she had a first look deal with DreamWorks, and she agreed to read it with me attached. And she read it, and she's like, I absolutely want you to make this. I'm absolutely the wrong person to make this with you, but you should. So there's going to be a weird jump cut, but...
You were talking about the woman at DreamWorks said that she wasn't the right producer.
Yeah, she wasn't the right producer. So that was the night. Had a lovely conversation with her, and I doubt anyone in this conversation would remember it, but her and Tom Hanks's wife. Rita Wilson. Rita Wilson, that's right. I'm sorry. She just happened to also be there.
Oh my God, I love it.
When I was in the office, and she was not there for me or anything like that, but everyone just kind of, these are our thoughts. And it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, that was the night that I went home and was like, okay, what do I do? And so I looked on Craigslist, and I noticed some people were like, I've got a script, or I've got money, or I've got this. I'm like, oh, people do this. This is awesome. And so I just put out an ad on Craigslist, and I don't remember exactly what I know it was short. Have a script, have a story, want to tell it, looking for producers or someone to help me do this and find money and just be cool. just don't be a jerk. Like, just be cool. I literally think I said.
We're all laughing because it literally said "just be cool" at the end.
And I got a handful of responses, and you were one of them, and
That's because I thought I was cool.
Yeah. Well, and most of the people
contrary to popular opinion.
Most of the people that responded, if they weren't actors, going, "I'm the guy you're looking for. I'm the girl you're looking for your movie." If they weren't actors, most people were like, "Do you have money?" Respond, "No," and then you never hear from them again.
Right.
And you responded and got the script, and I didn't have a dime, and you didn't really know how to raise a dime.
I know, I literally had no idea.
But now there were two of us that, and there were three of us actually, but it became you and I.
Yeah.
But now there were two of us that didn't know what we were doing. And two people that don't know what they're doing.
When you don't know what you're doing, it's always a good idea to get another person who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Have a friend who's equally ignorant. And your ignorance and their ignorance forms this ball of get it done.
Yeah, it totally does.
And like two negatives make a positive.
Right?
Exactly. And so
is that science?
I don't know.
Math.
Oh, okay.
Science, I guess technically science.
And so then I don't remember who had the crazy idea of going to American Film Market.
Oh yeah, the AFM. Well, the other producer had a project.
Oh,
and
right.
they had a meeting really early one day, and
did we just crash AFM?
Basically,
is that what we did?
Yeah.
I just remember getting a call. I was still working in advertising, and then they're like, "Can you be down here at AFM?" Or I took like the day off to go hang out at AFM for
No, you did not.
Did I?
No. Okay, so the day before we were going, we were like, Andrew, you're awesome at graphics. We need a one sheet. Because we're going to go, yeah.
I used to make movie posters for a living back in the day.
Amazing movie posters, by the way. But yeah, so we were like, let's just take a one sheet. Why not? We're going to be there. It was literally an afterthought. And it was like, we're going to be there anyway. We might as well see what happens. Mm-hmm. And so we end up at AFM really early because we were afraid of traffic because it's LA. And there was one other person in the lobby because we were there super early before anybody else got there. And I just went up to him and I was like, "Hi, I'm Jenna. What do you do?" And he's like, "I raise money for movies." I'm like, "I have a movie." And thank God we had the one sheet because I handed it to him. And his producing partner happened to be a teacher in a former life. And they were like, "Can we meet the director?" And so we called you that early that morning, and you were already on your way to work, but you called in and you were like, "I got to go to AFM."
That's right. And so, yeah, I beelined it down to Santa Monica because AFM was at some hotel right on the beach.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the hotel. The Lowe's?
Yeah, I think you're right. And so we met at the most cliche Hollywood story ever. We met around the pool.
Yes, we did.
At the hotel.
Which you can't get into anymore unless you have a pass.
Yeah.
So but at the time you didn't need a badge to be around the pool.
No. So we were around the pool near the cabanas talking shop. And here are these two gentlemen that, how much are you looking for? And did we have a budget breakdown at that point? Yeah, you'd done the numbers.
Yeah.
And, we told them what it was. And
listen, this story makes it sound like we didn't do any work, but we did a ton of work. We had a business plan already prepared.
It was like 30 pages. We had done market research. We had done comparative picture tables.
But we didn't know what to do with it once we had it done until we were like, it was very pretty. It was
bound.
It was nice. But that was where AFM came in, where we were like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
Let's just go see what we do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they took the business plan, they took their conversation with me, and they took a copy of the script, and then they put it all in their bag and then disappeared. And then we spent a couple more hours at AFM just did that just happen? What do we do now? And then it was the next day. It was either the next day or...
I'm old now.
It was
10 years ago.
It was either the next day or 2 days later. They were still at AFM, and we came back. And they're like, "We have questions."
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And we sat in the lobby, not the pool. we weren't cool enough to do the pool anymore. We sat in the lobby and they talked about their thoughts about it. And I just remember sitting there going, they're never going to do this. They're never going to do this. Da, 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 da. Talk. At the end of the conversation, they're like, we want to do the movie. And I was like, no way.
Usually when people ask a bunch of questions, they're interested. They're just finishing everything out.
And so they're like, we're going to do this. We're going to give you the money. What I didn't know was they turned our 2 or 3 people that didn't know what we were doing into now 5 people, 2 of which kind of knew what they were doing, but turned us into 5 people that didn't have any money. So for about 48 hours after AFM, I was like on this freaking high because I just thought 2 grown adults, because I was still a kid, but 2 grown adults just agreed to give me money. And essentially that's what they did, except they didn't have it yet. And so
they agreed to help us raise the money,
which wasn't clear. And then for like a month or 2, we got dragged to like fundraisers.
Yeah, we did a lot of fundraising.
Shaking hands, kissing babies, because when you're making an independent film, you literally raise the money like $1 at a time.
Yeah.
There's none of this like, all right, well, Universal's going to pitch in 50 mil. Warner Brothers is going to take over P&A at 20 mil.
Right.
And we'll get someone else in here for the last 10 mil that we're going to. No. You're literally like, do you have $15 I could borrow? And
it's true.
Meanwhile, you're still acting as if you're funded.
Yeah.
Because you have to. Mm-hmm. Because part of their deal was we had to get the movie done in a certain time. Like, we'll give you the money, but you need to deliver by such and such a date.
Well, I think because of the subject matter,
there was an anniversary coming up, and everybody, for better or for worse, thought that was going to give our film the best opportunity to be seen on the lowest possible budget.
Yeah.
So we are. We're casting, we're crewing up out of a dance studio or actor's studio. In the back room of this like after hours. Like it was next to a barbecue joint.
Oh, that's right.
It was next to a barbecue joint and a place that sold cell phone cases, and that was it. And it was just like this dank ass room, and so we're crewing up and we're telling everybody like. Yeah, no, it's good. We got it. We got the money. Money's there.
We're filming in Nebraska.
It's great.
6 months.
So everyone signed on, and
it's a very dangerous game we were playing.
Oh, totally. I mean, we weren't,
but we didn't really realize because we were believing.
Well, and the other thing too that no one talks about with independent film is independent film or any independent creative project is a catch-22. You're always in a catch-22 in the sense that everyone wants to be a part of it, but will only be a part of it if you have the money.
Right.
But the people that have the money will only give you the money if so-and-so's a part of it. So you approach so-and-so, lie through your teeth. I've got it. I've got the money.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
I say that half jokingly, but
yes. There are certain words that you can use to make it so you're not lying through your teeth.
Yeah. But I cannot tell you how many times like Jenna had to talk me down off the ledge because I'm like pacing outside wherever we were like a maniac.
Yeah, that was pretty much a constant picture, pacing around whatever vehicle we were driving.
Yeah, because we would drive all over LA to meet with people and then get out of the meeting and then call either the executive producer, financial people, or call someone back at home base. And it's like, what can we do? Can we do this? Can we do that? What if we move this to this date? So-and-so's ready, but this has to happen and it's just like, it was a lot of fun. And incredibly, like at times rewarding and soul crushing.
Yes. It's a roller coaster. And I know that's cliche, but it really is.
Yeah.
It's like a constant up and down.
To the point where we were like, money was in our bank account.
That was exciting.
In the production bank account, not like in our personal bank account.
No, that never happened.
I lost money on the movie. But it was in production's bank account. And we're like, okay. And now people are getting in cars. They're getting on planes. We're flying out there.
Yeah.
And I remember, oh my God, I think principal photography, by the way, is the date that the movie begins filming. I think principal photography was supposed to start in like 72 hours. We had 3 news crews in the lobby of the hotel where we had rented out like 2 floors for everyone to stay.
Right. The Crown Plaza.
The Crown Plaza Hotel on Dodge Street in Omaha. Word up. And then, so the news crews were there to talk to us about filming and get excitement and all this, and for us to drum up support for extras, because we were still short on extras.
Oh my God. Well, because there was 2,200 people or something crazy in this movie.
Yeah, we needed a lot of just really willing and cheerful bodies.
And we're so grateful for the ones that showed up.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, so good.
And 3 days before we're supposed to roll camera, one of the executive producers, money guy, who had traveled down there. Like I remember right before we walked in.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Hey, so do you think it's possible to make this movie on half as much?"
I totally forgot about that. Mind you, the budget was already like a tenth of what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, when they
at minimum.
Yeah, when we had put the master plan together. I
totally forgot about that.
When we had put the master plan together, like it was one number, and then it just kept getting lower and lower and lower. And like 3 days before, it wasn't like malicious or anything. Stuff happens when you're making a film, and I can't even imagine being in his position.
Oh, right,
being someone that had committed X to somebody and having to reel it back, but to reel it back 3 days before, and it's like, so could you do it for half? And I was like, are you kidding me? And they, by hook or crook, say what you will about how, some of the disagreements went throughout production, but at least that gentleman was an absolute monster for the cause. Like, absolutely. Like, he was raising money while we were spending it.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like, let me reach into my wallet. It was like going to a cash register and they're like, the total's $27. And he's literally handing you $1 at a time so that you can hand it to the lady at the register.
Yeah.
And you're handing him really slowly because he's only holding 20.
Right.
But he's like
buying some time.
He's finding the other 7. And
oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
And so and of
course we were like, well, let's see what we can do. I remember crunching that budget and being like, can we make it for half?
And we realized that we literally could shoot it. We could shoot it and get everyone home, but we had no money to like edit it or finish it
or distribute it.
So
you want a movie in the can, but let it stay in the can.
We could film it and then do nothing with it.
Right.
But everyone was already there.
Yeah.
We didn't tell the crew. We didn't tell anybody.
I know. We're literally having conversations about how are we going to get people home.
Yeah. Like, could we afford plane tickets for 40 people to go back to LA? Like, what if we sent one of the cameras back? Or what if we asked people to share hotel rooms? Or 3
We were already asking people to share hotel rooms. I know.
Like, what if we asked them to go 3 to a room instead of 2, And it's like, let's work 7 days a week instead, so, but we made it work. And the filming went surprisingly smooth, given how incredibly large. Okay, I'll be the first to admit 3 things that in retrospect I should have never done. Number 1, you don't make a film like that out of the gate. You just don't. There was enough ignorance, and then there was just the right mix of ignorance and ego on my part that I was like, yeah, no, I can do this. Yeah, that's totally fine.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Oh, full recreation with SWAT teams and helicopters and 1,500 extras. Yeah, it's fine.
On the cheap side, this film should have cost $15 million on the cheap side.
Yeah.
To have done it 100% the absolute right way, it should have cost $15 million. Mm-hmm. We didn't even have $1 million.
Nope.
Wow.
And
the entire total, should I say?
Go for it.
Entire total shooting post distribution budget was $500,000.
Yeah. And I'm pretty confident about 15 to 20 grand of that was my own money.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Yeah. So yeah,
don't do that.
Don't no. And then the third thing looking back is it's like, know that that's a project that you believed in and you want to do. Have the gall and the respect for the material. Not that I didn't respect the material. Everyone on that project respected the material, but be willing to wait. Be willing to hold out for the right time or adjust your thinking. The problem that we faced was by the time we realized that we weren't going to have what we asked for, we had already committed to certain ways of making the film.
Meaning certain equipment,
Had we gone into it knowing that ultimately we were only going to have $500,000, you don't make it a union show. Mm-hmm. You don't cast.
But then you don't get $500,000. Do you know what I mean? It's such a double-edged sword. And it was really interesting when we got to distribution, how obvious the double-edged sword was, because we had filmed it in such, like we did it in 4K when nobody else was doing 4K. We did so many things.
You know what ticks me off? I would never put all my eggs in that technology basket again, or think for a second people care about 4K HD cell phone.
Well, not anymore.
They don't. But
they did at the time. That's for dang sure.
They thought they did.
Right.
Everyone thought, and myself included, everyone thought that this was going to be important. And all intents and purposes, we were the first feature film ever to be shot natively. Entirely natively in 4K digital.
Yep. And
no one will ever really know that or care.
Yeah.
But that's how cutting edge it was. Because think about now, our phones will shoot 4K. I mean, we've got a camera right now that's shooting this that can shoot 4K. The workflow in 4K is still horrific.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's awful. It's impossible even today. Now roll the tape back 10 years.
Which doesn't seem like a lot, but in technology terms, that's like 100 years.
Yeah, roll it back 10 years and then say work in 4K.
Right.
You're like, we were like daisy
Mind you, I am like a total, what's the word? For people who are not technically savvy.
Noob?
No, there's a word for it. Like, I'm analog, yo. And so Andrew's like, Jenna, we're going to shoot this and it's going to be like this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to go to my tech guys and ask them what it means. And they're all looking at me like, are you guys on crack? Like, what? Wait, what's your budget? No budget?
It was like one minute clip, like 20 gigs worth of.
It was insane.
It's insane. I mean, literally our post guy was writing the code to edit while we were editing. Remember that?
Yeah. We wrote software to be able to work with the footage.
But where I was going with it was from a distribution standpoint, in that it looked like we spent $15 million on it. Yeah. And so when we went to find a buyer for it, they expected it to be a movie that had a $15 million budget just based on the trailer. Right. And then when they saw it, there were little, like, when you're making an independent film, you don't get to like do 20 takes of a certain scene. And so there were little tiny hiccups. Like the movie itself wasn't as smooth as a $15 million movie might have been. And so they were like,
definitely rough edges.
Yeah. And so the distribution companies that were looking at it to buy it, I think expected something different from what they got, based on the fact that we were able to make it look so much bigger.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it was this really interesting double-edged sword because then
every step of the way we face double-edged sword.
Yeah, it was so fascinating. And I think that's because you come from the world of advertising. So that's how your brain works. It's really pretty.
I know,
Everything is really, really pretty. Yeah. And so they think, I don't know, it was really fascinating from the producer's end to deal with people's expectations.
Oh, absolutely.
So fascinating.
Absolutely.
In all areas, from the viewing to the, like, how much we actually knew about what we were doing, which was not a lot. And so, like during these negotiations and conversations, it got a little hairy in certain places, but we learned a lot.
I just remember, and I'll be the first to admit, like, at no point, I never had any delusions about what we were doing. Like, I knew we were making an independent film. Mm-hmm. But there was a day, it was a scene where we were recreating the news hysteria. Oh. And we had converted this entire parking lot using like Ryder moving truck, like anybody that had a white van and an RV or an RV, like get down to the school parking lot right now, bring it all and stay for the day. And we filled this parking lot, and that was the first like day where I'm like, holy crap, you're looking at 1,200 people in one shot. Physical bodies. Now, on a $15 million, $20 million, $30 million movie, those would have been CG people. They either would have been CG people, they would have had like 200 people, and then just duplicated or replicated the crowd. When you're looking at 1,000 faces and everyone's there, and I remember I climbed up on a box truck. I climbed up on one of our grip trucks, like a U-Haul moving truck, and I have a bullhorn, and I'm like directing, and it's hot as hell. It's February, March, but it's like 90 degrees for some reason.
I think we shot over the summer.
We didn't.
Oh no, we did, because we only had the school for a week before it let out for the summer. Remember, we shot the first week with the students in the school as extras, and then we shot the second week with the school empty.
It was May, June.
Mm-hmm. May, June. Yeah, I'm like the timeline. I think we were on location
right.
Scout in February.
You're right. Okay, so anyway, it was hot as hell. There's 1,200 people in this parking lot, and I was like, at that moment, I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe we're doing something.
Great, I'm glad it took you that long to get to the point where you thought you were doing
I was like, maybe, I don't want to say lightning in a bottle, but maybe something is happening. But the problem was, I think a lot of people had that same feeling that day, because from that day on, everyone's attitude about the film went from being a scrappy, independent by hook or crook to, oh my God, what are we going to say when we're on talk shows? Like this went from, I'm just glad to be working on a film and maybe I'll get 5 minutes of footage out of this for my reel, no matter if you're a crew or an actor or whatever, to, oh my God, like so-and-so's doing a great job acting. Like I could see them getting like a Spirit Award nomination for this. And when that started getting back to me, that's when I like mildly started to panic. Because up until that point, I was like, everyone's on the same page. I've managed expectations.
Yeah.
Boom. And it was right around the time that like some of the money people, some of the investors, like at that point were like getting calls like, you guys got to come down here. You got to come down here. You got to see this.
Was that early in the shoot?
About 2 weeks in.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had another 2 weeks to go. And when I started seeing the money people, and I think there was a reporter, not local, that was there one day.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it was Hollywood Reporter, somebody not local, or Indie Film Magazine. Someone was there one day. I'm like, wow, like we're done if I can't do this. Like this is going to...
No pressure.
Yeah, this is going to be a one and done. But it did. It went largely smoothly, despite being a first on so many levels. And then distribution was an absolute animal, or editing was an animal. Like we edited the 1080p proxy files because there wasn't computer power strong enough to even move 4K.
Well, and because we had no budget, we were literally working with students.
Yeah.
I would say Craig can chime in here because he's part of the editing team, but it was probably 95% students working on it in the editorial.
I mean, obviously the heads were more teachers and that worked at the school. Like Mark was soon became a teacher, if not almost there at that point. And then also the other Mark.
We had lots of Marks.
Yeah. Everyone became last names.
Yeah, but everybody that was helped out, assistant editing and whatnot, they were all, they're prize students, and they were, the best of the students. So they.
Did they get credit for that?
Oh yeah.
They got class credit? Okay.
Oh, class credit, I don't know.
Well, I know they got credit in the film.
I'm like, what?
I don't know. I think they just did it for the experience.
But I mean, when you're in a career. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's better than class credit at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just remember we had just wrapped filming, we had started editing, and then the economy took
that's right.
Like the bottom just dropped out of the stock market, and
the crash.
Everyone stopped buying movies.
Yep.
Overnight. We had 2 first look agreements, and overnight they both went away. And now we were this film without even a potential home.
Yeah.
And that's when I think everyone else started to panic.
Though I was like, okay.
Whatever. Yeah. We'll just go festival to festival, and eventually someone will want to buy this.
Yeah.
And then that's when the conversation turned to digital. And I was always like Captain Digital. Like
I know. It's so funny. Like we could not be more different as far as our likes and strengths in the film. But I think that really helped because
you wanted theatrical, but
we got to do both.
And we got to do both. What people don't understand is when we say we got to do both, it's because we did.
Yeah, we decided. And I think that honestly, in hindsight, is my favorite part of this entire project, is that we were both willing to have the conversations about how to get the goal accomplished. Meaning for both of us, I think the whole goal was to get the story out. Like this movie just needed to be seen, and however that needed to happen, it needed to happen that way. And we wanted to make the money back for our investors. So those were the 2 goals that we always checked in on. Right. And so when the economy crashed and we didn't have distribution anymore, we would sit down and be like, okay, but how do we get to this goal? And I think that for me, that was the biggest takeaway, was you can always accomplish your goals. It may not look the way that you thought it was going to look when you started, but if you just keep checking in on what those goals are, you can get there eventually and figure it out.
Yeah. And what did we figure out how to do?
Distribute movies.
We released, and when I say that we released,
like literally we figured out. We had to form a studio, a distribution studio, in order to release it theatrically on our own, and we didn't 4-wall it. Now, 4-walling is basically when you pay for all the seats in the theater in advance. Right, you rent it out.
You rent a theater out, and then you charge whatever you want for the tickets because you paid the theater what their asking rate was, and you do like one.
We didn't have any money to do that.
We didn't have any money, so we hooked up. We were trying to go through film. We tried to go through like AMC and United Artists booking agents. But because we weren't backed by a studio, no one would look at us. So I had been speaking with some people in the technical world, and I had heard through the grapevine that all of these theaters didn't actually own their projectors.
Oh, that's right.
They were leasing their digital projectors, which is what we needed. We needed digital projectors to show this
which at the time there weren't many theaters that had them.
Yeah, they were still showing 35 millimeter film, and we needed digital projection because we never had prints, and we couldn't afford to make prints.
No, we could not.
So we had hard drives.
Yes.
And so when I found out that AMC, Man Theaters, United Artists, like some of them that had converted their 35 millimeter films or theaters to digital, the cost of converting that theater was between $250,000 and $500,000 per screen to do the conversion.
Wow.
And so theaters at that time were still hurting, just like they are now. And so they were renting the equipment from a company called Cinedigm. Mm-hmm. And Cinedigm happened to be in our backyard.
I know. I love that.
And we went to Cinedigm, took a meeting with them, and we're just like, hey, could you pipe our film into these theaters? And they had done specialty events. Like they're the guys, they were the company at that point
that did like Fathom events.
The Fathom events. But they had never been approached to do a release. They've done one-offs where like special engagements, but they're like, yeah, we can release it. And so we like hijacked. We literally
legally.
Yeah. But we basically went around the movie theaters and hijacked the projectors. And crazy. We were in 18 cities, and we did fairly well in some of them, and in some of them we got crushed because, well, we got it into movie theaters. We had it an official release, and every theater got a poster or several, but we didn't have newspaper ads. We didn't have trailers.
No marketing budget.
No marketing budget whatsoever. So the movie was out there, and we took to Facebook, and it's like, hey, if you're in Brooklyn, can you go see our movie?
Yeah.
Like we went on like every
help us sister out.
Yeah, we went on like every free podcast, most of which we launched just to try and like maybe this will work.
Yeah.
And it did. It did. Like,
we made the money that we put into the theatrical release back in the theatrical.
I think we did a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
But if it was
we basically broke even.
Broke even, yeah. But then
we still didn't make the budget of the movie.
No, but then iTunes came in. And they got the film 2 weeks after theatrical. And that was the first time.
We day and dated it.
No, we couldn't. One of the theaters, it was a week. We had to wait 1 week. Because I wanted same day. And iTunes wanted same day. And I think we waited 1 week. I don't remember. I'm almost confident that we waited a week. And iTunes came in. And I was excited about the theatrical.
Andrew's a big, giant iTunes fan at this point anyway.
I loved the idea of the theatrical. One of my big regrets is I never actually went to go see my film in theaters. But I knew the film had its best chance on iTunes, and iTunes was absolutely the right place for it. And when it hit iTunes, that's where the second round of managing expectations really came into play.
It's true.
Because we went on iTunes.
And we were number one.
And we exploded.
Yep.
And when you are rocking number one on the masthead, not only in the independent category, but we were in the top 5 in all of iTunes for like 2 months.
Was it? I don't remember. I think we were at number 1 for at least a week.
We were at number 1 independent for over a month. But in the overall...
No, I'm talking about overall. Because if it's in the independent, there's still expectations are still being managed. But it was when we went to number 1 over all the studio movies.
Yeah, we were above Dark Knight.
Everyone's like, we're going to be rolling in it. And I'm like, we're getting 1 penny. Yeah. Calm down.
Yeah. I distinctly remember the day that we were number 1 on all of iTunes. Like it was us and then the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And I remember going like,
crazy.
Yes. No.
I totally remember that conversation. Jenna, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Like on the one hand, everyone's watching your movie and downloading it, but it's 99 cents.
Right.
And people are starting to talk about like, I'm going to build a pool.
Right.
I'm going to buy a car. And I'm sitting here going,
you're going to see $5.
This might total lunch.
Right.
This number 1 status.
Which, by the way, isn't a joke.
No.
Like, you just don't make a whole heck of a lot of money on digital. That's the reality. At
that time, and it was such a Wild West. Like, no one knew what to do with it.
No one was
like,
keeping track.
We had a Netflix deal, and they asked for DVDs. Like, that's back when Netflix wanted DVDs, and we had to give them streaming just, like, because.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to order 500 DVDs from you at whatever dollar amount per disc. And then you also just have to give us a hard drive for streaming. And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, because no one was monetizing digital at that time. And they didn't know how to keep track the way that they do now. So even if they were monetizing, the numbers were all, I remember trying to get reports and people like, we don't know.
Oh, God.
We don't have any idea.
No one was like.
Streaming wise.
Yeah, streaming. You know? We'd be like, we'd call Apple and we'd be like, hey, you know, number one, like, what does that do? And it's like, oh, we don't actually start putting anything together for like 90 days.
Oh, that's right.
And you're like, you can't even tell us how many people are watching it. Well, obviously people are watching it. It's number one, right? And you're like, how many people are watching it? And they're just like, well, yeah.
And they probably kept it quiet because number one at that time might have meant 50,000 people watched it.
Or
you know, like nobody
5,000 people watching it, you know, and they had to manage expectations because maybe they were new. I mean, I think iTunes Movies was only like a year old.
Yeah, it was really
new. Music had been around for a while, but movies, that was new.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I mean, this, by the way, is back when MySpace was more popular than Facebook.
Yeah. We had a MySpace page.
We
did.
But yeah, I mean, it was a crazy time.
So interesting.
And it's totally different now. And it's sad that, you know, a movie, excuse me, every film has a life. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you hope that your film has legs. And you hope that it lives on. Mm-hmm. And some movies like have that, and other films no one really knows what to do with. And eventually, as a filmmaker, as a creator, you have to step back. You have to step away from what you've done, and you entrust it to people. And the problem with independent films is a lot of people, I think, they do their best, and the independent world, I mean, there's just so much media. There's just so much content that the reason why Citizen Kane has legs, or the reason why anything Warner Brothers makes, no matter how craptastic it might be, you know, a January release that they're just trying to get off their books,
right?
It still had the machine behind it.
Right.
And when you and I were like, we've been at this for 3.5 years, we need a break, we need to breathe. The second we stopped the machine, everything stopped.
Yeah.
And if we were making the film today, obviously I would shoot it completely differently. I would not put as many eggs in this basket or that basket. But I think it would be easier to, not easier in the sense that you would just automatically be guaranteed longevity in an audience, but I think it would be easier to keep the machine going
without working 12 hours a day.
Without working 12 to 14 hours a day. Like it was just such an undertaking. And
it was pretty brutal. I mean, it was also because everything was shifting. The economy was shifting. Digital was becoming a thing. Facebook was becoming a thing. Like, I think that if we did it now, it'd be easier to build an audience. Number one, because there wasn't any audience in one spot.
I will say, if we had made the film 2 years later than we did, it would have been easier. Today, I think it would have been not as hard, but now more expensive to do.
I hear what you're saying.
Building an audience costs money now.
True.
But yeah, it's just, it's
fascinating
to be, the thing I have to always remind myself about is and we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast with relation to the Apple HomePod. There's being first to market and there's being first to follow. At every turn, we were first.
Yeah, that was the challenge.
And while that was incredibly exciting and worthwhile and mattered to like 12 people, it's because we took it upon ourselves to say, we're willing to be the first. We're willing to be the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
That I don't want to say, because I do not make this claim at all. And I know there's other people that might, but a lot of people learned a lot of stuff about like what not to do and what to do. And, you know, the camera company that we used, like literally after this was like, there's no market here for this type of technology, and what, like, they just went back into like industrial chips.
Yeah.
Like they thought they were going to do creative, and they were like, oh my God, like this is, so we didn't shut them down,
right.
but they definitely changed paths because of this. And, you know, a lot of people that even on our crew that were going into other projects after this were like, they were telling their creative teams on their new jobs, like, I don't think you need to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to mess with that. Like HD is fine, or this is fine, or we don't, you know, so on and so forth. We were just first.
Yeah.
And
it's always tough to be the first, but it's also so fun, you know? And I also have to say, like, just because we've done a lot of, I think, talking about the things that we would do differently, I don't have any regrets about it. Because would I do things differently? Sure. But I wouldn't know that unless I did it that way, you know?
That's true.
And so I think the one thing that I would say, if anybody's going to venture into this wonderful world of filmmaking, is, and I think this is like the thing of life, right? What are you going to do with it once you're done? Mm-hmm. I think I never had any idea. I didn't go into it being like, I think I'm going to be a producer for the rest of my life, so I'm going to use this film as a stepping stone. I think it was just, I want to make this film because it calls to me and I wanted to work with you, you know? And so now I realize over the last 10 years, I'm like, what do you do with this, you know, firstness? What do you do with these lessons? How do you help the next generation of filmmaker? Because we did learn a lot. I did, that's for sure. And, you know, I think that one of the biggest, like I said, one of the biggest lessons is knowing what you want to do after so that you can let go of it, you know, and
have an exit strategy.
Yes, that's sure. The word. That's the word.
And yeah, I think, I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with the entire process.
Yeah.
It really depends.
I feel like everyone does, though.
It really depends on which, no, I mean, like with my own choices, you know, like my big thing was everyone was there. I'm not because I'm some big rock star, but everyone was there because
Andrew is a big rock star.
Everyone was there because of me.
Yeah. Well, everyone was there because they wanted to tell your story.
Right.
It was important.
And a lot of people did a lot of really great work. And
that's for sure.
I've always felt responsible for the short lifespan that the film had. You know? Yeah. But to be fair, I've had moments, I don't have them anymore, but immediately after, you know, when we were doing distribution and shortly thereafter, you know, I remember distinctly my sales pitch the entire time that I worked on this film. And my sales pitch went exactly like this. If I were in your position and I was asking me for anything that I'm about to ask you for, I would tell myself no. I would. It's
totally true.
That is how I opened every conversation with every crew member, every actor, every person that gave us $1. If I were you and in your position, I wouldn't work with me. But now that I've said that and you're still here, let's work together.
Right. Let's figure it out.
And so, yeah, I thought that was going to keep me kind of like immune to that pressure, and it just doesn't. It really doesn't.
So I'm going to give you a little perspective shift because I was the one that negotiated all the contracts. So, right. So I would say that the way to look at it, and it's been really interesting for me personally lately with like, I am constantly thinking, how do I use all of this information to help the next generation, right? And so instead of looking at it as if the goal was mass distribution and people saw the film so much, you have to look at it as this, just what you said earlier. They've got amazing footage for their reels. And they've gotten amazing lessons throughout the entire process. Because that's one thing that people came back to me afterwards with a lot, was that we were open books. So while we were filming, people knew what was going on, you know, and we weren't scared to share those stumbling blocks with them so that they wouldn't make the same mistakes later. So I think that
I was always proud of the team.
Yes.
I was always proud of the team, and I loved
Oh God, our team was amazing.
The dynamic that the entire, I would say 99% of the time, we just always had.
Yeah.
It was, everyone's like, oh, film is like a little mini family that gets together for 3 months and then disbands. And I don't think we were all family, but we were a very respectful platoon.
Yes.
Like we were, for lack of a better word, we were a well-oiled machine when we were working.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. But that's what I mean. So like, I don't know who specifically you're thinking of that didn't get out of it what you wish they had, but I think that that's misplaced.
That's just me. I mean, I wish that everyone could have put their pools in their backyards.
I know.
And had this big social, change. And, I was always upset that I couldn't make good on some of the more unique strategies that you and I wanted to employ in terms of the give back portion.
Yeah, I know.
Like that always bothered me.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, economics are what they are. And you're just like, again, you're number one on iTunes, manage expectations.
Right.
Here you are thinking you're going to be this great financier or what's the word? Donator.
Donor.
Philanthropist.
You're
going to be this great philanthropist. And then your portion to do the philanthropist stuff is like $1.50.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
But,
Well, what you didn't give in money, you gave in experience and teamwork.
That's what I was trying to say.
And it's taken 10 years for me to be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because you think 10 years is such a long time, but I think I remember when we were talking about doing the movie and it was coming out for the 10-year anniversary of Columbine, right? You and I had the conversation, I remember, where you couldn't have done it earlier. Like it took 10 years to be able to get to that perspective,
right? For
you to be able to tell that story the way that you needed to tell it. So I think it's so fascinating to me that it's now 10 years later from this insane experience, which in some aspects was very traumatic in its own right, to be able to overcome some of those perspectives and experiences and come to, it's 10 years later. Now what? I mean, it's still a very important cause. You could still
a very, very worthwhile topic.
Yeah, it is.
And it will continue to be. And that's my other regret is
unfortunately,
there's not a platform for the film anymore that may or may not be able to help somebody.
Yeah.
And that's on me.
Not really.
It is and it is. It is and it isn't. But
I think that you're taking that responsibility and it's not yours.
Maybe.
Look, we're having therapy session, people, on the podcast because it's all relative.
It's all related.
Oh, it's all related. It is all related.
Yeah. Well, you know what? On that note, since we invoked the title, and when you invoke the title, roll credits.
Uh-oh.
On that note, this has been an awesome show, 2 parts. Really thank you guys for coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hope it was worthwhile. And I hope everyone listening enjoyed it. And I don't know when these 2 will go live, but they'll go live shortly. And in the meantime, thank you all so very, very much for listening. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, please write them in the comment section below. Hit subscribe if we're worth your time. And otherwise, be kind to one another, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.